If we can go ahead and make sure that all of our microphones are muted, everyone, I would appreciate it. A couple of housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted onto CITE's website generally within about a week's time. I'll drop the website link where that will be hosted shortly. And with that, I will go ahead and get us started. I'm going to pass it off to Nolan Etheridge, who is the Senior Program Manager at SoftChoice, and he's going to get us started with the webinar today. Nolan?
Thank you, Crystal. I appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. You are in for quite the treat today. We're going to talk about Microsoft Fabric and understand how this fits into the greater Microsoft platforms that are out there. The facilitator, the primary facilitator, Steve, I'll hand off to him in just a moment. But a couple of things that will be happening. This is a 90-minute session. We will have a feedback form that's available for everyone so that you can ask questions, have us pass it along to your inside account teams, or if you'd like to get one-on-one customer immersion experiences around Fabric, Power Platform, Azure, Copilot, Copilot Studio, security and compliance, any of the things that we offer like that, please feel free to check that off on the feedback form and let us know how we can help you there. We're actually going to list the link to the feedback form twice, once near the top of the hour, just in case any of you can't stay for the full 90 minutes. And then we'll do it again at the end, right before we wrap up today, so that, again, you can all get a chance to see that, to give us some feedback. So with that, please ask any questions in the chat window. That is where we'll be answering them. There are a couple of us that are keeping an eye on it. Steve may even work it into the presentation, totally his choice. But if not, we're going to be answering those in the sidebar. Please do ask your questions. We really do want to help you understand this platform. So with that, I give you Steve Thompson, and he will take it from here. Steve?
Thank you, Nolan. Steve Thompson, and we'll get to introductions in just a second. But what I'd like to do first is kind of talk about what we plan on covering today. Our agenda is why Fabric? What are the business challenges many of our customers face? What is the business value that you can get from using Fabric? And then we're going to talk about Fabric itself. What are possibly some use cases that particularly apply to your environment? Fabric architecture in terms of how does the product work and what are the different components? What are the capabilities of Fabric? We're going to talk about some of the details such as, and kind of nice features such as data mirroring, and of course visualization, talk more about Power BI. Rob has prepared a demo, and then probably close out with, capacity and billing. So as I mentioned, and as Nolan said, my name is Steve Thompson. I'm a principal data architect at SoftChoice. Been with the company now my 12th year. And Rob, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, nice to meet everybody here today. My name is Rob Lazarek. I'm a data practice architect, somewhat new to the SoftChoice team, but I've been working with Microsoft on Fabric for almost 4 years now, back when it was in beta, and successfully delivered a number of implementations. So hopefully can offer some hands-on experience and a demo of what it can do. Yeah, nice to meet everybody.
Thank you, Rob. And Rob has a lot of experience with Fabric as well, so it's very helpful. And I may or may not be able to see the actual chat if it's live, but we will address any questions. And I would like to basically start off with, again, why would we need Fabric? Well, there are many reasons, and let's start with some of the challenges. There are fragmented data ecosystems, right? There's Power BI, Azure Synapse, SQL Server, host of data scattered in different places, sometimes structured, semi-structured, available perhaps through API calls. So part of the issue here is a kind of a disparate background and data all over the place, right? The vision of Fabric is that the product was announced in May of 2023 as more of a unified SaaS, software as a service platform, and that all of the components that really make up the data platform, analytics included, could be brought together under one umbrella. And the key building blocks, so we're talking more about that, but this is really more meant to be a kind of a 10,000-foot view. We'll go down deeper into the more technical parts later. But the idea being that we'll give you a good understanding, hopefully, of what the product is made of and what it can do. But the key building blocks are OneLake. It's all built, of course, on Azure, data factory, data engineering, data warehousing, and it's all integrated. So you have not only shared tools but shared capacity. And why it matters is that it is unified. Governance and security are built in with Microsoft Purview. Additionally, AI is integrated into the core product as opposed to being an add-on. And Rob has some really interesting demos to show that capability. And in terms of billing, there's more of a cost efficiency. There's what's known as pay as you go. In other words, there's no contracts. You just pay as you go. However, you can also lock in with reserved rating for decreased pricing. So in terms of today and the future, rapid adoption, Microsoft continues to improve the product, adding new features and capabilities. And because it is a SaaS model, they can update it directly. And so you end up seeing the changes take place sometimes almost real time. Now let's take a look at some of the business challenges. And this is based on information that we've received from Salesforce. But and I would suggest perhaps even some of these numbers might be a little bit low, but 81% say data silos are hindering their digital transformation efforts. 75% struggle to integrate data insights into the hands of people that actually need them. And 62% report their data systems are not fully configured to leverage AI. And it's really a gap, right, as AI adoption accelerates. So let's break those challenges down to look at what the practice would be perhaps in your organization. We mentioned earlier data silos. So these are common pain points we see. You have different organizations that have knowledge of different data, or sometimes we call them data domains, and they don't talk to each other, right? So they're clumped together in groups and not accessible. And the column on the right-hand side is meant to address what Fabric can help bring to the table. Some of the drivers we see are Power BI licensing. You may have heard that Power BI Premium, it actually has been retired. And therefore, the people are moving Power BI into Fabric. Another one is poor data governance. Without quality data, it's hard to get quality reporting, right? So Purview and data governance policies and things like that can help improve your data quality. Data management. Data may be in inconsistent formats, locations, or perhaps even agreeing on what names look like, right? Having proper data catalog is so important. And again, that can be leveraged by using products like Purview. Copilot consistency and access. So if Copilot's drawing data from the wrong sources, you're going to get incorrect or inconsistent results and probably won't get really accurate insights. We mentioned poor data quality. That's, again, very critical to having quality reporting and quality AI results. So next we want to talk about Microsoft Fabric itself. And this section is really meant to talk more about, what are the different sections or pieces involved with Fabric. And again, give you perhaps additional insights in terms of what this product will offer and show end to end. For this, I'm going to turn on my laser pointer. So Fabric, as I mentioned earlier, is a SaaS application, and I might start that everything really is built on OneLake, and OneLake is enabled at the Azure tenant. You can have one OneLake per tenant, and what that allows you to do is now consolidate data in one place as opposed to having data in multiple storage accounts. It can be in one place and not necessarily have to duplicate data in other places. Fabric, Copilot and Fabric and Microsoft Purview are integrated, if you will, within the Azure ecosystem, so they're really included. So the different components, kind of going from left to right, data factory, data engineering, data warehousing, data science, real-time intelligence, Power BI databases, and industry solutions are all different items that can be activated or used within the product. You don't necessarily need all of them, but it's nice to know that you can use them as needed. So now we're going to take a look at specific capabilities that kind of make Fabric stand out from traditional approaches. And the 5 core capabilities to consider here, one is the seamless integration with Microsoft 365 and Power BI. As I mentioned, OneLake is centralized storage for a single source of truth. You do have the ability and capability of using real-time analytics. Not every customer needs it, but there are applications where getting real-time data is important, particularly in manufacturing, or perhaps monitoring security, things like that. As I mentioned, built-in governance and security via Purview are available. And again, everything is kind of AI powered at this point. And what I want to show you next really is talk about kind of how like the business value that these different capabilities bring to the table. Fabric sits kind of at the center, if you will, of the ecosystem conceptually. Connect natively to Microsoft Dynamics 365. So if that's in use, you automatically have a connection to that. I might also add that connections exist to third-party applications, and there's just a few of them listed here, but there are really dozens and dozens that are available. Additionally, connections exist into other data platforms, and it has the ability to use different components such as Databricks, OpenAI Service, machine learning, AI Foundry. Power Platform is becoming more popular as well, and it also integrates well with Power Platform. I think Rob may even show some things with Power Query. So it really does a nice job of kind of consolidating and bringing all this information together. And of course, we have direct access to Microsoft 365 as well. So all of the capabilities and components that are there are brought into, or can be brought into Fabric. So next I want to address how say now we have this Fabric, how do we bring it into the company, right? So how do we adopt it? And there's really kind of 3 major steps. Obviously, there'll be sub-steps within this, but the 3 major steps are: one, we establish a central repository for all data, and think about this single source of truth, right? So that's OneLake. The next step would be to prepare data for AI innovation by improving the quality of the data to ensure it's complete, accurate, and governed. A subsequent slide will be talking more about ways of doing that. But the main thing here is that we improve the quality of the data so it can be used in terms of the next step, which is through building out generative AI experience on that trusted data foundation using perhaps AI Foundry and Microsoft Copilot Studio. So here are 4 specific business drivers or business value drivers that you might want to consider. We have additional to think about flexible, transparent pricing model. I'm going to talk a bit more about capacity, but the nice thing about it is you can kind of think about right sizing. So you don't necessarily have to overcommit. You have the ability to scale it up or scale it down based on usage. Ease of deployment and management. So because everything is managed effectively from one portal, there's a lot less time spent in terms of moving around to different locations. Secure self-service data and analytics enable teams to self-serve data, and analytics will maintain security and compliance. So what that means is you have the ability to, let's say, curate data sets. So therefore, if you have folks developing Power BI reports, they go to a single source for the curated data sets, and they can do self-service. So they can create their own reports and customize things without having to go back to IT and say, hey, can you make this data available? And you'll find that Copilot is basically embedded very deeply in Fabric. And actually, Rob will show this as well. You can create and tailor custom Power BI reports. You can create custom dashboards, KPIs. It's actually pretty amazing. Been a Power BI user for a very long time, and it's really nice to see the functionality increase. And I would suggest even the ease of creating different reports and dashboards has become so much easier. So let's talk about kind of a customer example or a use case. And one of the things, and particularly since you folks would be interested in this, is that, and this is meant to be more somewhat generalized, but schools and districts struggle to turn siloed data into meaningful reports. You have perhaps student data spread across SIS, LMS, assessments, attendance, financial systems. So other challenges such as manual, slow reporting processes, right? Trying to assimilate this data. How do you correlate it? Difficulty in governing, right? In terms of protecting and making sure that PII, PHI data is properly stored and managed. Have and additionally a lack of a trusted data foundation to support emerging AI use cases. And really good quality or good AI relies on quality data. And without having that quality data, you certainly can have some interesting results, not all of them good. And so why Microsoft Fabric? There's, as I mentioned, native Microsoft integration. So it fits seamlessly into existing native Azure environment, including Azure, Power BI, Microsoft 365. It is a unified platform, as we mentioned earlier. Data governance, again, is part of the core product. And again, it's AI ready. So the next part I want to talk about is, so let's say you want to solve these challenges. What are some of the potential components you'd use? On the left-hand side, well, the components along with why you might want to use it would be Data Factory is used, and they're effectively they're called pipelines within the Fabric environment, but they're used to ingest and orchestrate data from multiple operational systems into one lake. And standardized data ingestion, again, reduces duplication and inconsistencies. One lake, or sometimes referred to as a lakehouse, provides a centralized secure data foundation. Advanced analytics and insights enable for cross-domain analytics. And so what they mean by cross-domain is cross-data domain. Be able to correlate and bring together all of that data in a meaningful way. And kind of breaking down, think of it as breaking down those silos. Power BI has the ability to create role-based dashboards with drill downs, drill throughs, KPIs, and they can be updated dynamically on a schedule basis or as needed. The Microsoft Purview, as I mentioned, we didn't talk a lot about this, but you can use Purview to do data classification, protection, cataloging, defining lineage. In other words, where does the data come from? What's the path that data has moved through the environment? And you can do policy enforcement, and that's part of the data governance. So many of the results, we have timely insights. These are all kind of potential results, but automatic feedback processing, operational optimizations, improved data accuracy, and efficiency gains. I'll give you a moment to look at that. So next, let's take a look at how Fabric kind of integrates and how it might be used in the world. Data has really positioned as kind of the data foundation for new era of enterprise intelligence. And we're going to talk a bit more about the Microsoft IQ platform as well. But here's a full picture of what the Fabric connects to across the enterprise. I realize it's kind of a busy picture, but I really like this graphic. On the left-hand side, you get the Microsoft ecosystem, sources and systems, M365, Dynamics, SQL Server, Azure Cosmos DB, Azure IoT Hub, streaming data, Synapse Analytics, and we have a lot of folks moving from Synapse, migrating, if you will, into Fabric, Power Platform. So these are all native Microsoft, and there's probably more that are not listed here as well. Across on the right-hand side, it also has access to non-Microsoft and multi-cloud data. You'll note these arrows with shortcuts and zero copy. What that means is you have the ability to set up a shortcut. Think of it like a link. So you can link to data sets and without having to bring them natively into one lake, you can, so there's no copy involved. It's just a matter of setting up a link, and then you can access the data natively from Microsoft Fabric. And Databricks, GCP, AWS, Oracle, Teradata. Additionally, anything on-premise and or REST endpoints are available. Likely, if it's on-premise, you need to have some kind of gateway set up. But again, it's just a matter of setting up that linkage from the Microsoft Cloud to your on-prem networks. And within the center, as I mentioned, OneLake is kind of the layer that supports the data side. We've got Purview that's native to Microsoft Azure, Data Factory, Synapse, Data Activator, Real-Time Intelligence, Power BI, kind of the outer layer of Fabric as well. In terms of enablement, you've got 365 Copilot, AI agents, custom copilots, and we have a lot of folks now creating additional agents to be used to help speed up and facilitate things. And again, you've got advanced analytics and data science available as well. Next, I'd like to show a real case Fabric architecture that we actually did for a customer. I like it because it showcases some of the two different paths actually. And we started on the left-hand side here, we have the sources, right? So in this case, this customer had API, SaaS applications, or should maybe the best way to say it is SaaS applications through API access, semi-structured data, quite common, CSV, logs, JSON, XML, and relational databases. Their first requirement was to have Azure use ingestion of security event data. They wanted to watch security events happen real time and be able to respond to those. So Azure Event Hubs was used to do the real time ingestion. So this top path, Stream Analytics, you'll see a fork here. And what this means is that it writes real time information into the bronze layer. And we'll talk a bit about the medallion in just a second, but bronze tier accepts and is typically used for raw data. So data gets brought in unchanged. And then following this top path, the streaming ETL will go directly to an SCIM solution. So then it could do alerting if, like, for instance, somebody accessed information they shouldn't, or there was a potential breach, they wanted to be notified. And you will see Microsoft Fabric is kind of at the center of this entire diagram. The second path was used more for reporting, and Data Factory was used to bring in data through scheduled jobs. And the medallion architecture, if you've not heard of it, I highly recommend you look into it. If you recall back in, not that long ago, we hear about ETL, which is extract, transform, and load. And the more modern path is extract, load, and then transform. So what that means is you bring data in raw, you bring data in unchanged. So therefore, you always have the ability to recreate the next tier, which is silver tier, is curated data. Perhaps you need to go in and clean up the data, convert date formats, to remove data duplication. So data gets deduped and perhaps summarized. And then the gold tier is typically the reporting tier. It's summarized data. It allows you to get access to high level summary level. So that might be the curated data sets that Power BI access. And we're going to talk a bit more on Power BI, but I just want to point on this diagram, the reason there's two arrows connecting to showing Power BI connected. One is natively to data sources that might be within Fabric. The second is something called direct access, which goes directly against our OneLake storage. And it's very fast. It allows you to access data very quickly. Additionally, I might mention as well that this data layer is stored in, it's in a Delta format, in a Parquet format, and a Delta storage. So it's industry standard as well, which is nice. And you'll note that in this diagram, everything is kind of layered on top of Microsoft, Microsoft Purview, Entra ID, which is, and then cost management, Key Vault, Monitor, DevOps. So they're all part of the native Azure ecosystem. Next, I'm going to touch briefly on Microsoft IQ. Microsoft is aligning its full product capability, product portfolio around principle of intelligence and trust. This also kind of shows you a bit the context of Microsoft's enterprise AI roadmap. And the IQ platform is built again on intelligence and trust. So it end to end, and it spans really three pillars: work IQ, Foundry IQ, and Fabric IQ. And within those, we have native integration with Copilot Studio, GitHub Copilot, Microsoft Foundry, Copilot, and 365, and everything is, of course, built on top of Microsoft Azure. And you've got agents available. And again, everything is based on the broader Microsoft security. So next, I want to talk a bit about some of the kind of entry points and details about capabilities of Microsoft Fabric. First one I want to touch on is data mirroring. And data mirroring is really quite cost effective in terms of, if you think back, one of the things that was always a challenge is how do you replicate data from the source to the target? So in other words, you want to bring it into OneLake. And then you have to also monitor real-time changes. And typically it'd be done with CDC, change data capture. And then you'd have to make sure data gets caught up and made and kept near real time. But data mirroring allows you the ability to set up low cost, low latency solution. And there's really three different types. There's database mirroring, which is near real-time data replication. And you have the ability to basically enable a database and then table or tables, and then set up the mirroring and it'll automatically start transferring. And multiple data types are supported there as well. You also have the ability to do metadata mirroring, which is kind of a lightweight approach, which only synchronizes the structural metadata. And then something called open mirroring is an extensible open standard mirror capability that writes CDC, change data, directly into a Fabric mirrored database using the open data lake format. So there's really three different types of mirroring available. Again, quite powerful, and I might add quite time saving as well. So at the very core of Fabric is, and really we're probably one of the reasons that most people move to Fabric, is the ability to use Power BI. And Power BI is, as it says here, kind of the bridge between data and decisions. Power BI is that primary analytics and consumption layer within Fabric. It obviously features intuitive drag and drop canvas, built-in AI capabilities, and native Microsoft 365 integration. I mean, it connects directly into OneLake. It also has the ability to connect into other data sources as well. And as I mentioned earlier, you have the ability to create curated data sets and then allow individuals with developer capabilities to create their own custom visualizations and reports as well. So that's really one of the key things that we see, and we see a lot of folks using it. Additionally, it can be consumed from multiple locations and multiple sources as well. And one of the key technical advancements within Power BI is what's called direct lake mode. And in the past, we would have, and it's still available, by the way, there's capabilities and reasons why you'd want to do it this way. But if we start at the top, you see typically it's a query, often a DAX query, which then is run against Power BI and analytics services, which is a bit like SSAS. SQL queries then get run against the data warehouse. It has to go out and scan the tables, and then the information gets imported back into analysis services with perhaps a copy of the tables, and then the results come back. So direct lake mode is fast in real time. And what it does is the DAX queries actually get pushed all the way into OneLake and then get run directly against the lakehouse data itself, the OneLake data. So it runs against the hierarchical tables and provides results quite quickly. So with that, I'm going to switch over. We're going to go to a demo. And Rob, take it away.
Thanks, Steve. Sorry, guys. So normally I would do this live. Just our CDX environment right now is not cooperating, which only ever seems to happen when we're doing live demos. But I am going to play a recording that we just did for the Fabric demo. So the first thing that we're going to be covering is going to be how we can use, well, firstly, we'll just show the Fabric interface. There's a new interface for what they're calling like the Fabric catalog, right? So we'll get into a little bit on the governance and the different interface options, the different components that you can use within Fabric for creating data flows, but as well as the other options for data ingestion, such as pipelines, data flows, copy, lots of different ways that you can do different tasks within Fabric. So just give me 1 second and I'm going to share my screen here. Make sure that the sound is turned on. Okay, can everybody see? Joining our CIA today for Microsoft Fabric. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about the Fabric UI, the web portal experience, logging into Fabric, what you see for the first time, some of the features, some of the bells and whistles. Then we're going to get into a live demo where we walk you through one of Microsoft's CDX demos, showcasing some of the Microsoft Fabric Copilot features. We will get into using Copilot, Fabric Copilot for creating a data flow Gen 2 using the Copilot, so we can see how we're going to use natural language to do data engineering with data flows. What's cool about that is you can actually edit the data flow as well. It's really helpful. It's really a productive feature. If you're not familiar with data flows in Power Query, it's really useful. And then we will also touch on how we can use Copilot within Power BI to automatically create dashboards and reports and edit reports, and some really, really cool tools that are a part of Fabric. So let's start with the Fabric user interface. So I've just logged into the Fabric portal. So this is the home screen here in Fabric. So I'll just zoom in here to show the different menu options on the left-hand side. But what you'll see at the top of the screen is under Welcome to Fabric, there's a bunch of buttons that give you quick links to some of the very common things that you would want to create, like a new workspace, if you're seeing this for the first time, general, basic data analytics, medallion architecture, data analytics using SQL, event analytics, Lambda, all kinds of useful things. Then we have some links for hands-on workshops, so different categories that you can learn more about Fabric, how to ingest data into Fabric using Data Factory, how to build a lakehouse. So if I click on one of these, this will actually take me to Microsoft Learn. So these are common Microsoft Learn articles that give you lots of great useful information on how you can use Fabric, including the architecture. This is for Lakehouse, and then it has some really good tutorials with documentation on how you can get started with Fabric, like how to create a lakehouse. So we'll walk you through some of these in a later CIE. I just wanted to showcase some of the features that are there. And then below this, you've got access to quick access to recent workspaces, recent items, and favorite. Now, this is a demo environment. I don't have very much created, but in your own environment, you'll have lots and lots of things here for the last few items that you were working on. So one of the newer features of Fabric that Microsoft has implemented is the One Lake catalog. So this is the second button below workspaces on the left menu. So I'm going to click on that just to show what's in this screen. So this is the One Lake catalog. So there's three tabs that make up this new One Lake catalog. The first one is the Explore tab. So this is kind of like your go-to for exploring everything inside of Fabric in terms of almost like a data catalog. So it defaults to all items. So I can see all items, or I can filter it by item type, right? So it gives me access to absolutely everything. So this is super useful. I'm really glad Microsoft implemented this, because sometimes when I have in a large organization, you might have dozens or hundreds of workspaces, and in each workspaces, you might have lots of folders. That's a new feature that is now part of Fabric. It helps us organize our content and our artifacts. But I might just want to find everything. You know, I might want to see all of my Power BI semantic models, right? So here I can click on data and then semantic models, and it will show me, okay, here I can see that I've got a couple of different Fabric semantic models. So very useful feature for finding things, you know, processes, insights, configurations, all of the different items that make up Microsoft Fabric. So that's the Explore part. Now this is all items. Now I can see only my items. So these are items that I've created. I can also see an endorsed items. So we'll get into this topic a little bit later. What you can do with Microsoft Fabric and Power BI is you can actually create endorsed data sets, right? So we can build a process where we can certify the data set and endorse it, basically meaning that somebody has checked the data set or checked the item and certified that it's a data set that your organization should be using. So basically, you want to promote these endorsed data sets over things that people have created that haven't been checked, haven't been tested. And then there's a tie-in here with Purview where you can basically add different levels of sensitivity tags to your data sets. And Purview now has pretty deep integration with the rest of Fabric. So based on our sensitivity labels of data sets, we can enable features like data loss prevention, where we can actually prevent the wrong people from seeing the wrong data, or prevent people from seeing data that they shouldn't see, let's say. And so we'll talk a little bit more in the future about Microsoft Purview and how it integrates very nicely with Microsoft Fabric. And then, of course, I can label something as a favorite, and then I can see all my favorites. I'm just going to remove that filter. Right now, I don't have any favorites because this is just a demo environment. Another tab here, perhaps even more important, are the govern and secure tabs here. So give it a second. It's just loading up all of the governance data here. So the governance tab basically gives you one pane of glass for all of your Microsoft Fabric governance. So here it's asking for a tour. I'm just going to close this for now. But basically, it's giving you some analytics on the state of your governance. So this was last refreshed right now, 1 minute ago. So it shows me all of my different domains and subdomains, all of my different workspaces, my different items. It shows me a count of items by type. So here I can see I've got 2 event streams, 2 reports, semantic models. Again, this is a demo environment, but in a very large organization, having this access to all of the governance with a single page is very useful. It even gives you recommendations. So here it's coming up with some recommended actions. So it's using AI, it's using analytics to give you some of these insights. So it's telling me to refresh my inactive data items. So it's detected that there's some inactive data items. So it knows, hey, these haven't been used for a while. They probably need a refresh. And increasing the percentage of endorsed items. So it's looked at my data estate and basically determined, hey, you don't have a lot of endorsed items. This is a best practice. So Microsoft is giving you a lot of these insights. So based on their knowledge of Fabric, again, somebody that's new to Fabric, this is very, very helpful from a governance perspective. You can see items that you own by last refresh date, items with and without descriptions, and items that were last accessed, right? And I can click on the View More button So this is actually going to create or not create, it's going to load an Insights governance dashboard. So we'll give it a second. So here we can see a dashboard that shows us our entire data estate. Again, we don't have a lot of data here, but we can drill into domain, subdomain, workspace, item level. It shows me item count, items count with no domains, items by item type. So just more detailed analytics. And the beauty of this is, it's based on the Power BI technology that we know and love. So it's interactive. We can click on it and all of those filters get applied to the other visuals. Here we get into sensitivity label coverage. So I touched on that with Purview and data loss prevention. So this gives me insights into, are we using it? In this case, we can see 100% of our data sets are unlabeled, right? So that's not a good thing. We should actually be starting to use sensitivity labels, unlabeled items by item type, unlabeled items that were recently refreshed, lots of insights. And here we have another tab that shows us our discover, trust, and reused items. So we can add metadata attributes to items like endorsement, descriptions, and tags. So this gives me information on the metadata of our data, right? So unendorsed items by item type, items with and without description type, items with description, untagged items. So again, helping me understand what's going on with the governance. And here you can see this is a brand new setup. There's very little going on here, but as you add more and more data sets, more and more lake houses, more and more reports, more and more users, this becomes very critical to understanding what's going on across your entire Fabric tenant, your entire Fabric environment. So I'm just going to go back to my One Lake catalog. Now there's another tab here, which is the secure tab, which is perhaps the most important one. So one of the most important functions that you'll do within Fabric as an administrator is making sure that your security is set up well, so that the wrong people don't get access to the environment who shouldn't be seeing things, and that also that the right people see what they should be seeing. So here I can see a view of all my users. I can filter based on workspaces. I only have 2 here. I can see all of the users here. I can see type of user by user group and link, workspace roles. I can see everybody who's an admin, everybody who's a member, everybody who's a viewer. I can see my different workspaces, right? And then I can, if I want to click on one of these, I can see more details about that particular user. I can now view security roles as well. I don't have any at this time, but again, one pane of glass for a lot of your security settings to see what's happening with your Fabric tenant from a security perspective. So I'm going to go back into the home screen, and I have created a workspace specifically for this Fabric demo. So in order to do most of these demos, you just need to have access to a Fabric capacity. In this case, this is an F64, so it should be more than fast enough for doing some of these tutorials. But any F capacity should be enough to run these demos. You just might have to wait a little bit longer if it's a smaller capacity because you've got less compute and less resources. So we are today going to be walking through the bike and sales demo. So give me 1 second here. I'm just going to open up my notes. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to be walking through is, so one of the most important aspects of any project is ingesting data into your warehouse or into your lakehouse from different data sources. Now, Fabric gives you a lot of different connectors and a lot of different ways that we can ingest data, and even more ways that we can then take that ingested data, transform and process that data to store it in our lakehouse or our warehouse and bring it into Power BI. So one of the ways that we're going to show how we can ingest data and transform the data is using the new Data Flow Gen 2 capability that's a part of Fabric and Fabric Data Factory. It's a lovely option if you are familiar with Power BI and Power Query. because the user interface is basically the same. It's basically the same language, and Microsoft has deeply integrated Fabric Copilot capabilities into Dataflow Gen 2 itself, and it's editable. So as we go, we can see what Copilot's doing. We can make changes. So let's get into the demo then. So Copilot in Fabric, it's a great way to enhance the productivity. It can unlock insights, and it can facilitate the creation of custom AI experiences that are tailored to your data. So as a component of Fabric, Copilot in Data Factory, it empowers you to use natural language that basically you can articulate your requirements for creating the data integrations and the transformations. Basically, in other words, Copilot operates like a deep subject matter expert that's collaborating with you as you're designing these data flows. So in this demo, I'm going to walk through how Copilot is integrated into Data Factory to bring the power of generative AI into your data engineering tasks. And this particular example shows data for a fictitious electric bike rental company, which you may now know, K12 Outdoors, one of Microsoft's data sets that they use. So here we need to bring in the data and then transform it and enrich the data in a way that we can create a report so that the data is useful for doing some of the analytics that we're trying to do. So here we're going to use the Power Query experience and Copilot to show how that's done. So first thing, I've already created the workspace and I've already created the lake houses, but I don't have any data flow. I don't have any pipeline here. So we're going to end to end. I'm going to walk you through how we can create that and how we can use Copilot to do it. So first thing here, I'm in my workspace. I'm going to click on the top new item. Now you're gonna see a window with hundreds of items. So at first there was a few, and now that Fabric has been out for a few years, there's almost hundreds of, or maybe not hundreds, but dozens and dozens of different items across different categories. So you've got get data, which you can copy data. We've got data flows Gen 1, Gen 2, event streams for real-time data, notebooks for ingestion and processing, Spark jobs for scheduling, Spark job definitions, pipelines for copying the data, mirroring data. So this is a really, I would say, awesome feature that Fabric has that takes away a lot of the complexity from data ingestion. So if you have data sources that support mirroring, I would heavily recommend looking into it. It supports everything from Azure SQL, on-prem SQL, Snowflake, BigQuery, now supports Oracle, now supports SAP, SharePoint capability just came out, Snowflake, MySQL, Azure Cosmos, you name it, it probably supports it, or they're working on support for it. Won't get into that today. I just wanted to point this out, that this is an amazing capability. You don't need additional Fabric capacity to run this. It can run on your existing capacity. So you're not paying any additional costs for it. Now, once you've ingested the data, you need to be able to store it somewhere within Fabric. Again, Fabric has a lot of different data stores and databases: Cosmos DB, Event House, Lakehouse, Warehouse, Semantic Model, Snowflake databases. So again, support for Iceberg, warehouses, SQL databases. You can run. Fabric now supports SQL workloads, so you can run applications within the Fabric ecosystem. Data prep options, Apache Airflow, open source if you like using code for scheduling jobs, Data Factory, data flows, Gen 1, Gen 2. I would recommend not using Gen 1 anymore. DBT, so that's an awesome way for building and managing data models using the DBT language that's been around for a number of years. A lot of people using it with Snowflake. It's now fully supported, fully built into Microsoft Fabric. Event streams, notebooks, and then once we've got the data stored, we can analyze it. We can create data agents, agentic capability, AI built into the platform, experiments, machine learning models, environment definitions, Spark jobs, notebooks. So a ton of all these features, right? And then of course we've got all of the great visualization capabilities that are built into Power BI. We've got paginated reports, if you need, scheduled reports that are printable, real-time dashboards, so reports built on top of real-time data with real-time intelligence, mapping capabilities, all kinds of amazing features that are a part of Microsoft Power BI, which is, of course, a huge component of Microsoft Fabric. So, sorry, I've gone a little bit sidetracked into all these different features, but there's a lot to talk about when it comes to Fabric capabilities. But right now, I'm just going to be creating a data flow Gen 2 because we want to show some of the new Copilot capabilities. So creating a new data flow here, just going to give it a name, calling this DFL underscore bike data. So bear with me while Fabric saves or runs certain Copilot tasks in the background. It's relatively quick, but sometimes with AI, things take a little bit longer or a little bit less long. That's the whole thing with AI. So here we'll see, this brings me to my Power Query interface within Microsoft Fabric. So this might look very familiar to you because it is. It is basically the Power Query experience that you're very familiar with from Microsoft Power BI. The Fabric team is taking a lot of the application functionalities that were a part of Power BI desktop and building it into the web interface. There's still a few features that you might need the application desktop application for, but we're seeing more and more feature parity. If you want to use a lot of Mac users, might benefit from this. Because now you can almost everything that was a part of desktop is now part of the web interface. So it's very convenient. So I've created my DFL bike data data flow. So right now it's empty. I don't have any data here, but I need to bring in some data. So I'm going to click, there's a link, a convenient link here, get data from another source. So I'm going to pick that. And then I'm just going to search for data. So, this is cool because it's tied in with our Fabric OneLake catalog. I can easily search for endorsed data sets, right? But here I'm actually going to use one of the existing bike data sets. So if I put in bike here, it's going to actually filter everything. So it shows me new sources. But down here in my OneLake catalog, I can see the bike data. This is the one that I want to use. So I'm a data set that I want to work with. Okay, so give it a second to load. So it's connecting to my Fabric Lakehouse endpoint. It's got a few tables there, so it's just loading the metadata. So it's refreshed that. So there's 5 tables that I actually want to bring in to work with today in my data flow. So I'm going to bring in the bike members table, bike stations, station statuses, trips, and weather. So I'm just going to click those, and then I'm going to click create. It gives you a preview, right? So it loads the first few hundred records. So I'm going to take a quick look, make sure this is the right weather table. Yep, all looks good. So this has a bunch of weather data with humidity, rain, temperature, all kinds of cool stuff that could be useful when you're analyzing bike trips and things like that. So I'm going to click create to bring in these data sets into my data flow. Give it a second to load all of that metadata. Okay, cool. So here I've got my on my left-hand side, I can see my 5 queries: member stations, statuses, trips, and weather. And then here I've got the UI that I have a visual representation of these tables on the left-hand side. And as I add steps and transformations and I change columns and I do things with my data, I can actually see visually what's going on with my data lineage. So this is a really powerful way to get insights into what's going on with data transformations, right? Because I think as data gets larger and our transformations get more and more complex, you need to be able to explain where the data is coming from, what systems, where is the data coming from, and then how are you manipulating the data? So this is a very quick way. Instead of looking through hundreds of lines of code, I can just visually see, hey, what data is coming from my members table, what's going on with it, where is it ending up, and then that's the data that's used for your report, right? So, and again, these data flows and lake houses and all of these native Fabric artifacts integrate very seamlessly with Microsoft Purview from a data governance and data catalog perspective. So this is the real power of Fabric. It's instead of a hodgepodge of different products that don't really talk to each other, it's an integrated solution that really provides you a lot of capabilities where a lot of things are already set up, or there's minimal setup required to get the most out of it. But again, I am getting sidetracked talking about Fabric. I'm going to get back to building my data flow Gen 2. So the first thing that I'm going to do here, I just want to make sure that my trip data has the correct date format. So give it a second. Now I want to update my start and end date. So I'm just going to make sure that it is using date and time, because we're going to use that to do some additional transformations. So for my start, I'm going to set my start date and my end date columns to have a date time data format. And the other thing that I'm going to do is use Copilot. So here on the right-hand side, you can see I have a button specifically for Copilot in the nice bright rainbow colors. So I'm going to click on Copilot, and you will see a menu pop up or on the right-hand side of my screen. So in the bike trips table, I have the start and end date, but I could use my knowledge of Power Query to clean up this data manually, but instead I'm going to try to save some time by asking Copilot to do some of these steps for me. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I need to create a new column where I want it to calculate the trip duration in minutes, because that's very important for further analytics. So I'm going to say create a new column for trip duration in minutes, and enter or click on it and give it a second. Now it's going to take my English language that I put into it. It's going to have context about the tables that I'm working on, hopefully, and it's going to be able to interpret what I'm trying to do and then run the Power Query to do that. So you can see here pretty quickly, it's added a new column. And the beauty of the Power Query editor with Fabric Copilot is all of the steps that Copilot's generating are editable. So I can click on this and I can basically see, did Copilot do what I asked it to do? And in this case, it's created a custom column called trip duration minutes, great name. And it's doing a calculation where it's doing duration, total minutes, and then it's doing a duration calculation, the end date minus the start date. So that looks correct. So take the end date, subtract start date, give me minutes. That's exactly what I wanted it to do. So instead of clicking on a thing and then writing a bunch of code, it's actually saved me time, right? I mean, this isn't complex. If you know Power Query, you could certainly do that. But even for people that know Power Query fairly well, this is pretty useful. There's some significant time savings that you can get by using Copilot. So what I'm going to do next is basically, I just want to take a look to make sure that it added that column correctly. Yes, trip duration minutes, and it's storing everything in minutes. That is exactly what I wanted it to do. Now, I just want to call this a different friendlier name, because we're going to use it later on. So I'm going to say rename the column to just duration. So because Copilot has context of what it just did, it knows the column that I just entered. So it's going to use that one. And then hopefully it's going to get the correct name. There we go. So it's taken that column, it's renamed it. Simple task, but it got it correct. So here, the next step, I want to create a new column where I'm actually going to group things by duration. So a little bit more complex. So let's see if Copilot can get this one correct. So create a new column that groups trips by duration. So we should see a second column pop up here. Give it a second as it's working in the background. And I'm just gonna, once it loads, I want to verify that it did it correctly. Okay, so here's my duration group column, great. And it's giving me medium, short, and long. Okay, so it's automatically come up with a calculation for how to do that. Some condition, it's a conditional column. So I just want to see what it came up with, right? Okay, so if it's less than 5 minutes, it's considered short. If it's less than 10, it's considered medium. And anything bigger than 10 minutes, it's considered long. So pretty smart, right? It's taken a look, it's analyzed the data, and it's made a determination based on that. So very cool. So next step, I want to create another new column where I want to show temperature in Celsius because I'm Canadian and I work in Celsius. So I'm going to say create a new column called temperature underscore C and show the temperature in Celsius. So I guess what it's going to do is it's going to first create a new column. Second, look at the existing Fahrenheit temperature column, and then convert that into Celsius using the correct formula. So here I can see I've got my temperature C column where it looks like it's now the values are less. So I'm going to assume that that is correct, that it is storing things in Celsius. And again, I can click on that calculation to see the calculations that it's doing. So it's doing temperature minus 32 degrees times 5 divided by 9. Again, no idea if that's correct, but for demo purposes, going to assume that that is the correct Fahrenheit to Celsius calculation. And then my next step, I don't need Fahrenheit anymore because we don't use it. So I'm going to say remove the column showing temperature in Fahrenheit. And the other cool thing about Copilot, because it's using LLMs, natural language, if you don't spell something correctly, it might still do it correctly, right? It's going to interpret what you're trying to spell. One of the things that LLMs are amazingly good at is taking gibberish spelling and actually understanding the context and the meaning that you're trying to do. They're incredibly good at fixing spelling. Okay, so let's get a little bit more sophisticated with what we're trying to do here. I want to filter out trips that happened on rainy days. I want to filter so that I can see. I want to be able to do some analytics specifically for trips that happened during rainy days. So I'm going to say filter out the trips on rainy days. Let Copilot work on that for a second. I added the following step to your query trips. Okay. Okay, great. So just to show you, it's added a filter, but let's say I didn't want that filter. In my on the right hand, my Copilot pane, I can actually undo that. So I'm just going to undo that because maybe I want to do something a little bit differently. So in the, okay, great, it's made that change. So here in my my view tab within Power Query, one of the things I wanted to show is there's a couple different ways that we can view our queries and our data. There's diagram view here. So if I click on. Hey guys, so I'm just going to pause it there because I'm just doing a time check and I realize we're after 3. And I think Steve has a couple of slides that he wants to cover. So I'm just going to, this does continue for a little bit, just showing a few more of the bells and whistles that Copilot can do with data flows Gen 2, like increasingly more complex things. we can share those videos with you guys as well. So I know we probably want to cover a little bit more on Power BI and the Power BI Copilot. So I'm just going to skip forward a little bit to that video, just due to the time. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask or put it in the chat.
Sounds good, Rob. Go ahead. I'll monitor the chat.
Awesome. Okay, I'll share my screen again. Again, I apologize for this not being a live demo. Normally it would be. I'm going to blame Microsoft for that today. Let me know if you guys can see the screen. Just give it a second.
And it works fine, I might add, if we're not doing live presentation. No sound on this side, Rob.
Okay, 1 second. For Power BI. So I'm going to go back into my Fabric demo workspace. And today, so first I'm going to ask Copilot some suggestions based on the data that I have. And Copilot will look at the data, analyze the data and the fields that are in our data model, and basically give a few topics that I want to use to get started. So let's get started by creating a new report in the existing workspace. So I'm in the Fabric demo workspace. In the top left-hand corner here, I've got my new items button. So I'm going to click that. You can do a filter here. So I'm just going to put in report. So in this case, I am going to just create a blank Power BI report. You'll see there's actually two reports. One is report and the other is paginated report, which is a preview. So if you're familiar with SSRS, that is an SSRS style paginated report. If you need, like a PDF or something that's printable or emailable, it's very useful for certain types of reports. But today we're going to create an interactive Power BI report. So I'm going to click on that. Next, we're going to select the data that the report is going to use. So I'm going to pick an existing published semantic model, Power BI semantic model. So this brings me to my OneLake catalog, which is nice. So I can see all of the existing semantic models that I've got here. So the one that I'm actually going to use today is, let me just make my screen a little bit bigger here, as my eyes are not as good as they used to be. We're going to use the bike rental analysis demo data set. And then I'm going to auto create, or sorry, I should say, I'm not going to auto create a report. I am actually going to create a blank report. So it's just going to give me a blank screen here, but it's going to connect to the existing Power BI semantic model. So here I have a blank Power BI screen. So what's very cool about Fabric is I have the full Power BI desktop editing experience, but in my web browser here that you can see. So this is, be the same experience on a Mac or any other, web browser that you have. You don't need Power BI Desktop to do a lot of these things. There are a few features that Power BI Desktop has for things like building AI-ready models and things like that this doesn't have yet. But more and more, Microsoft is making it the same experience with the Fabric Web UI as you would get with Power BI Desktop, which is great because sometimes I like doing stuff on the web as well. So we've created our blank report. So now I'm going to fire up Copilot for Power BI. So it takes just a split second. you'll see here, it's got some existing recommendations. So I can create a new report. I can suggest content for a new report. It can answer questions about my data. So let's get started by suggesting content for the new report. So I'm going to click that, give it a few seconds. It does take a little bit of time to analyze the semantic model. The bigger your semantic model, the more data you have potentially, the longer it might take, but that was relatively quick here. So it says, here's a suggested outline for your report. Click any topics to view details and start creating pages. So it's recommending here station utilization and capacity, trip demand patterns, member demographics and loyalty, and operational reliability and downtime. So those actually all sound like, interesting things that I'd probably want to look at. I might click all of them. But I think for the sake of this demo, I'm going to look at the trip volume patterns, because that's today. Let's pretend today that that's really what we're trying to analyze for all of these different bike trips. And this is kind of interesting. I actually have one of these bike rental stations right near my house. So it's this is an interesting data set to work with. So I'm going to click the plus next to the create button. So we're going to give Copilot a couple of seconds here to create this trip demand pattern. So we'll give that a second. So the next thing that that I'm going to do here. Okay, so firstly, it has auto-generated a report for trip demand and peak usage analysis. So here on the left side, we can see total trip volume. We've got 106,000 trips, average trip duration in minutes, which is 11.82. And then here we see a graph, the number of trips by date. And again, you could make this bigger here. I'm just going to reduce my filters on this side, make this a little bit bigger. And on the right-hand side, a bar chart for average trip duration in minutes by day, and then a couple more bar charts, number of trips by month and year, and then a line chart for number of trips by hour and day. So it's actually done a really good job of taking some of the KPIs in that data set and visualizing it in a nice way, the metrics that it thinks are relevant. And yeah, so this is like a really great way to get started. If you don't have any report, but you built a data set, or you just want to quickly analyze the data set, you could obviously do this yourself, but you'd probably have to play around with this a little bit, set up your slicers, set up your charts. That might take 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, and with Copilot, hey, it did that in 5 or 6 seconds. So a pretty useful feature, I would say. So the next thing that I'm going to ask Copilot to do is actually a little bit deeper analysis. So I'm going to say create page to examine. It helps if you spell things correctly. You don't necessarily have to, but I try to examine the forecasted number of trips by subscription type, trip length, and charging station. So I'm going to enter that prompt, give it a second to process it. So this should actually create a new page or a new tab on my report. So with Power BI, you can have many different tabs within the same report file. Okay, so there we go. So here I asked it to create a page for examining forecasted trips by subscription type, trip length, and charging station. And here I've got a sum of my forecasted trips by subscription type. On the right-hand side, a sum of forecasted trips by trip length and subscription type, and then trips by charging station, and then a breakdown of long, medium, and short. If you remember in the previous session, we actually used Copilot to build that calculated column. And I'm now using that data in a semantic model. So you can see how Copilot's useful in a variety of different ways with Fabric to help speed up development. So that looks pretty good. So the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm actually going to go back to Copilot and ask another question. But basically, we've created a beautiful and insightful report in just a couple of minutes. you can see how Copilot has the potential to supercharge how you create and how you work with Power BI. We have our forecast for our trips that are broken down by a few interesting fields, and we've got ways that we can slice and dice it as well, right? So because this is Power BI, again, it's interactive. I can click on one of these measures, and you can see that it's filtering the rest of my data set, right? If I click on San Francisco, it's going to filter the rest of the thing. So all that same familiarity with Power BI, trip length and subscription type again. So I can use these filters, and again, the report is fully interactive, right? Copilot is using those existing dimensions and filters to slice the report. So let's go back to Copilot. Let's see what else we can do with it. I'm going to ask it to create another report. I'm going to say create a page with trip statistics and station status by hour. So I'm going to let it process that. Give it a second. So again, this should create another new page. So again, because it's using AI, which is non-deterministic, sometimes the reports might be a little bit different. You might not get the exact same report every time you do this, but that's the nature of AI. Okay, but this time it does look like pretty much like what I was expecting. So on the left-hand side, I've got total trips, right-hand side, average trip duration, and then I've got some line charts here, number of trips by hour, average trip duration in minutes, and average bikes available by hour, average docks available, and average docks out of service. So it did that again very quickly with a very simple prompt. So now we're going to focus specifically on the number of trips by the hour chart. So you can see, okay, there is a spike. There's a spike in the morning, right? So if you look around here on this chart here, right around 8 a.m., there's a pretty big spike, between 6 and 8, you can see there's a definite spike, and that makes sense, right? Because that's typically when people would be commuting, heading into the office. So they'll leave their house, they'll get on a bike, and then they'll head into the office. And then we see another spike here, which is 1,700 hours, or about 5 o'clock, right? So between 5 and 6, you see a big spike in the number of trips, which also makes sense because that's probably people leaving work and heading back home. The next, what I'm going to do is, okay, it's telling me if the chart did not appear, but it did work this time, so I don't have to worry about manually creating that. But I am going to ask it another question. I'm going to say, create an area chart displaying number of trips per hour view. Steve, I might just have to pop down.
Hey guys, I'm just gonna stop it there because I know it's 10 to 3:30, and I think Steve has a couple of more slides that we want to cover. But definitely we can cover some. We'll share the content with you guys, and we have other CIEs that go even a little bit deeper into some of the other areas. We chose a couple of these demos just because I think we wanted to showcase the Copilot functionality that both Fabric has and Power BI has, as well as covering some of the all of the different artifacts that can be created. Now, I think we did jump a little bit from the data ingestion piece and processing right into Power BI, and of course there is a middle part where the data gets processed and turns into this sort of nice data model that you see here. And there's different ways you could do that. You could use data flows. There's notebooks. There's the SQL warehouse and the Fabric Lakehouse. So definitely we can in a future CIE cover those topics. I'll pass it back to Steve, who's going to talk a little bit about the Fabric capacity and licensing model, because I think that's pretty important to understand.
Thank you, Rob. Good job. Appreciate the demos. I want to kind of close out by talking a little bit. This is probably one of the more confusing aspects about Fabric. We get these questions a lot, but I want to talk about the capacity model, and then we'll kind of close out today's CIE. But Fabric uses capacity units, and that is effectively, think of it like shared workloads. So in other words, Power BI, data engineering, data warehousing, all of those things use the capacity. Additionally, one thing that's really kind of an interesting call out, I mentioned, you may recall, we talked about direct lake access. Data stored in one lake does not draw from capacity, so it's kind of a nice benefit. Some built-in mechanisms to manage demand, and this is really more for reference, but just to show you kind of how it works. There's concepts of bursting, which allow temporary overuse, smoothing, which spreads the spikes over time, throttling, where it'll slow workloads if there's sustained pressure, and then queuing, where things will get queued and then processed, kind of in that first in, first out situation. And Power BI is a workload within Fabric, not standalone capacity. And that's kind of an interesting concept, because when you look at how it's built, we have the SKU, which starts at the F2 all the way up to F2048. And some of the smaller SKUs are perfect for MVPs, trial basis, things like that. When you get up to an F64, that actually allows you to use Fabric capacity, much like, think of it like premium capacity, if you're familiar with that. But it allows you to basically have multiple people using Power BI. Note that you have two models, pay as you go, and then there's also the reservation model. Not a licensing person, but just be aware that if you do go with the reservation, they're 1-year reservations, and it's approximately 40% savings. You do have to be cautious that you pick the proper SKU, because you could possibly over provision. But the nice thing is it is scalable. You can scale up, you can scale down. It is built on a monthly consumption basis, unlike other Azure resources. And note that it's billed through subscription, but it's not a license, which is a little different. But again, it's because of the SaaS background. And I do want to make you aware that sometimes there might be other associated costs associated with any data deployment. You've got One Lake, Purview is included, I believe, with 64. But and there's different capabilities at the very basic level. It's included, and then as you add more capability, there's additional costs there. And of course, SQL. If you use there's internal embedded SQL within Fabric, I believe that's included. However, if you're using SQL Server, either as a PaaS or IaaS, there would be licensing involved in that. And there's potential licensing costs, as we mentioned. You could do it all with Power BI Pro, but there tends to be a break-even point where it makes sense to go with the higher capacity models within Fabric. Finally, I want to say, get started. There is a 60-day free Microsoft Fabric trial available. Consider setting up and working on a Fabric MVP, which is minimal viable product. It's foundational. It allows you to create a Fabric implementation that then can be grown with additional data sources, additional capabilities, and view Fabric workloads and see how they can turn data into valuable insights. And I want to thank you all for joining us today. We do appreciate your feedback. If you could, please fill out use the QR code to fill out the feedback form and provide information. We'd like to know what you liked, perhaps what you didn't like, ways we can improve it. So with that, I'll say thank you, and we appreciate being here today.
Thank you, everyone. And just a reminder, this webinar will be uploaded to CITE's website, hopefully about within a week. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of the team members or myself. I have my email dropped up in the chat earlier. And I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Thank you for joining us. Bye.